really, really shocking development here, no matter how you approach it.
So Danya, really surprised at a decision that Fabi makes in this game. Now he's playing against Abasov and he has to win. He lost yesterday, so he's in win on demand mode to take it to tie breaks. What does Fabi do? Well, he goes for e4, best by test, and c5 from Abasov. He's a Sicilian player, so you always get a good, interesting fight. Now we get knight f3 and e6 takes us down this Taimanov variation now. So d4 is played, pawn recaptured, knight takes on d4, knight c6, and after all four knights develop, Fabi plays a rare move now. So you can go with this knight into b5, you can also take here, push on with e5, many different moves, but bishop f4 is played and it looks really logical looking at the dark squares, and things get very, very complicated now. So you can go d6 here and it takes us down this kind of path as one possibility, looking very familiar, a Sveshnikov position. But coming back here, we see bishop b4. Now this puts pressure on the e4 pawn, the knight's now threatening to take, but it does allow this knight to hop in and look at the dark squares. So now here, in for a penny, in for a pound, Abasov takes on e4. Both players in their theory. So he's allowing this knight to check from here, but Fabi doesn't do it straight away. He starts with queen to f3, adding protection to this critical c3 square and attacking the knight on e4. So d5 is played, and now the knight jumps in, checks the king, and look at this, move 9, black's never castling, crazy position on the board. Now again, Fabi doesn't take the rook. It is playable, but he starts with the queenside castle, saying, well, okay, if you try and save that rook, that's not even helping you, you're walking into my bishop line, plus there's an active threat here, white's threatening to take on e4, using the fact that the queen is now in a pin, the rook's lining up against it. So we see bishop takes on c3, getting rid of the knight, threatening to take here, also shattering the pawns, and now here on move 11, Abasov goes wrong. He plays the third best move, but it drops him a pawn advantage. So what should he do? Well, e5 is the top engine move. The whole idea is that black plays very energetically in the centre, gives the exchange, yes, but then you should win back that knight at some point. It will be stranded. In the meantime, you get a big initiative here. Now the bishop can't drop back or the knight drops, so the knight either takes here or here. Game goes on, but black is technically a bit better when you run it with the engine, but it's one of those positions that's wild, anything could happen. But e5 not played, queen e7 elected instead. Now it looks to check on a3, that's why Fabi opens up the queen to defend that square now, laterally, playing pawn c4, still not capturing, still saying to black, you don't have time to save the rook, and now queen f6 from Abasov, another nudgy kind of move, looking to check on the back rank. So c3 now played, and although you're ditching a pawn, if black wants to take it, taking is no good. You know, if you chop here, well, we take, and then we're simply going to move the rook, pick this up soon, or you can even take in the corner first, still with a good game after captures here. And equally, if you capture with the knight, similar problems, check. The queens come off, you pick up an exchange. So touching this pawn is no good. And Abasov now goes for a crazy looking move. He lashes out with pawn g5. It is the second move in the position, second best move. You give the king a square, and the whole idea is that if the bishop retreats, something like that, to stay with the knight, well, now the queens chop off, the bishop chops off, and now you can save the rook, you know, something like this. So we see the bishop jumping here with check. Now, of course, Abasov has seen this. He turns the king into the g7 square, where it defends the queen, and after they come off the board, he recaptures with the king. That's key because he wants to keep this knight on the bishop. So after Fabi takes here, Abasov picks up the bishop. That's the only reason he's not completely losing. And after pawn takes, the dust somewhat settles, and we can see Fabi is an exchange up here. Now he starts by not actually extricating, is that the word? Can't think today, but extracting his knight from the edge of the board, bringing it to c7. He goes f3 first to stop this knight coming to e4, saying, well, you can never keep my knight trapped anyway, it's always going to escape. You know, if you try knight e8 to cover the square, well, you've just blocked the rook, which needs to attack the knight. So long story short, it will always escape. So knight f5 played instead. Now we get knight c7 hitting the central pawn, and so Abasov pushes it on. It's going to be lost, and this is where Fabi makes a strange decision, because the top engine move and really the most logical way to play is capturing that pawn. Now you don't want to capture with this knight or you run into g4, dislodging the defender. So this knight capturing is logical, and then you can develop with, say, bishop d3, stopping bishop f5. Game goes on, you know, this knight can still escape. If bishop e6 to cover that square, well, you can always just capture it, you know, that kind of thing. So white's doing decent there, and it's just a simpler way to play. But Fabi now plays this move and gets this reaction from Danya.
Really, really shocking development here, no matter how you approach it.
So why is Danya so surprised? Well, it allows black to now go knight to e3, and the whole game becomes wild and complicated. Not when you want, when you're trying to simplify and exchange ahead. So two pieces attacked, rook and pawn. Rook d2 covers the pawn, saves itself, and now we don't see this pawn captured just yet, because now rook e2 would come, the knight would have to retreat, and then you can take, pawn recaptures, and the second cannon joins the party, blasting down the board. This is really good for white. With all these weak pawns, the knight will soon escape, the bishop's a bit dominated, better for white. So no pawn captures, instead we see bishop d7, and it sets up a nasty threat of rook to c8, because this knight is actually perilously short of squares now, as we can see. So this is why Fabi responds in a tactical manner. He goes rook to e1, preparing to meet rook c8, which was played, with rook takes on e3. Because if pawn captures, white takes here and you defend here. So instead, we see rook takes on c7, now defending the bishop, so this is a threat. So Fabi saves the rook. He doesn't, by the way, take the pawn. Obviously, you open yourself up to a nasty discovery. Sorry, that's not the way to do it. That's the bad way. Actually, the computer says go knight e7 check is the best move. I didn't actually go down this line. It just looked awful to open up the king like that. But this is the line. King recaptures. Oh, okay, and bishop takes on b5. That's what comes at the end. And you've got two minor pieces for the rook. So you're never going to capture. Open your king. So rook e4 pressures the pawn, and now we see takes on c3. There was a call there, just going back a move for bishop e6, bishop f5. Peter and Danya looking at that one a lot, but Abasov goes for this. Now it allows Fabi to check, even though he's lost that pawn, but he plans to take it later on. It is weak and overextended. So king g7 played. Rook e3 immediately targets the pawn. a6 puts the question to this bishop. Fabi decides to drop it back, goading Abasov to play pawn b5, but actually this helps Fabi's cause, because now these pieces start to become loose and weak. b4 is the top engine move, but then something like rook e4 can come, swinging to c4, pressuring here, bishop a4 is coming, lots of nasty stuff on the light squares. So no b5, instead we see bishop e6, and Fabi has a choice. Do you capture this pawn and then allow black to take here, go in for a line something like this where you get a similar position to the game, or do you instead now take on c6 and after recaptures only then pick up on c3? And all of these lines here transpose to something similar, because the pawns now come off the board and we reach this position where the bishop makes its way back, cements itself. How is Fabi going to break down this structure? Well, he's going to give it a go. He's in a must-win situation. So what does he do first? Well, tries to get the rook off the board, but Abasov not having it. He wants to keep that one on, harass the white king. Now it marches in, all the way over to the kingside pawns. Stage 1 complete. Stage 2, activate these rooks, try and probe, gain some time on the clock. Make it to the next time control, because if you keep your eye on here, they soon get more time given back. So maybe they already had the time given back, but at some point they got an extra 30 minutes. And now finally, Fabi, stage 3, he starts pushing his pawns. So he pushes on here with h4, we get captures, rook captures, and h5. Now look at this construction. Is that a stable construction? It looks great, but watch how Fabi now tries to break it down. So he swings the rook away, clearing this square for the king. We get rook c2, pawn f4, king f6, rook g5, and now there's a big threat here of king h4, pawn f5. That's deadly, dislodging the bishop and then threatening to take this pawn. And there's only one move which plays against this. And once you understand what white wants to do, then it's an obvious move, but otherwise very difficult to find, and Abasov misses it. So what Abasov should do here is play rook to c1, and well done if you found that idea, because now if king h4, you can check the king back and white's not making progress. You can step back. Obviously white can try and probe in different ways, but you stop that primary idea. But what Abasov plays is rook c6, looking to cover from checks here, but now the king steps in. We see rook e6, still waiting on the 6th, and now this is the key point. Can you find the finishing blow that Fabi finds? Brilliant move here. So Fabi plays pawn to f5, forking 2 pieces. So you have to take that one, and now rook f4 pins the bishop, threatens to win a piece. Rook e5 therefore forced, and now the rook simply takes on h5 and forces resignation. So g4 is coming, about to win the bishop. So king e6, sidestep, logical, but now you go g4 anyway, the bishop moves back, you chop off the rooks, and king g5, and this is completely lost. The bishop can't come here to stay with the pawn. Obviously, if it steps back here, the pawn drops. So say you step with the king, now check, king goes. At this point, you then chop off, give back the exchange, and this is a completely one pawn endgame. You make the queen, you give the checkmate. Really beautiful endgame technique from Fabi, and this was the final position. So Abasov goes down. We go to tie breaks tomorrow, both matches, the final and the 3rd place playoff. So do hit subscribe to never miss those videos. I hope you enjoyed, and check out the video on screen for another epic game. Thanks very much for watching, and see you soon.